Hello and welcome to another exciting mini episode of the Extreme Improv Podcast. It's been just about a week since the last one, and if you were expecting it to be precisely on the Saturday like last time, I've let you down. I do apologise. I can honestly say this is a little bit of a transitional phase from the phase of us not having shows into the crazy time of us having regular shows and constant shows, and hopefully shows that will always come up on a consistent date. And that's my early New Year's resolution for you. So, over the last couple of weeks, I've been recording podcasts with people, like interview-style ones, and I've been figuring out what we're doing with the show, and we're going to have lots of interviews, but as I'm speaking right now, tomorrow we're also going to have a live podcast recording day where we're going to have lots of people in the same room playing games in a more panel show style one podcast like we have had in the past. And so this is where, just for the people interested in listening to this, we're evolving the podcast. The podcast will come in at least 3 forms. Podcast will come either as a panel game show kind of scenario. It will come as an interview style scenario, and we're also going to have some more mini episodes along the way, and at times they're going to be like tutorial scenarios. I don't know if that's tutorial scenarios, I don't know if that's the right phrasing, but what I mean is if you're a fan of improv and you perform improv, or you want to perform improv, or want to learn how to perform improv, I'm going to get some tutorial episodes up on the podcast where I'm going to talk about specific improv skills, specific improv games or formats, and just talk around the subject, and hopefully it'll be insightful for our listeners of how to actually perform improvised theatre. So, let's talk a little bit about what we have had in the last couple of weeks, recording-wise. So this evening I recorded an episode with an improviser from the Netherlands. Last night I recorded an episode, like an epically long episode, and I apologise if people expect them all to be the same length, but that isn't ever going to happen. And I think a lot of people that listen to podcasts don't expect that to happen. But I recorded an episode with a couple of guys who are... they're in America. They're in Indianapolis, in Indiana, and as well as talking all things improv, as we always will on this show, we'll also be talking about lots of other things. We're expanding the show. We'll be touching on pop culture things. We'll be talking about movies. We'll be talking about some video games. We'll be talking about... Last night we were even talking about some pro wrestling. And for those of you who are interested to find this out, you may find that there's a very interesting link between pro wrestling and extreme improv, so you can find out when that episode drops. But yeah, we were speaking about all sorts of things, and that isn't that this show is changing or diverting, but when you do improv, and it can literally be on any subject, it can be on any theme. And it's really interesting to hear from these performers what else they're interested in, to see what other interests they've got, and how where the crossover lies between improv and is there a connection between improv and video games? I mean, we play improv games and people play video games. I've done some stuff with Extreme Improv in the past where we had a parody video of the Extreme Improv video game, which we put out on April Fool's Day, and it was a fun Mortal Kombat Street Fighter style looking visual game. It kind of looked like Mortal Kombat with the digitized characters. Like I mentioned, there is an interesting connection between extreme improv and professional wrestling. The most obvious one, for those who have been with us from the beginning, I'll just mention here, is that the show was originally titled Extreme Championship Improv, and that was an obvious riff on the old wrestling promotion Extreme Championship Wrestling. And one of the things we've always carried over, even with dropping the word championship from the title, is that we do have a championship belt, just like they have in WWE or AEW and so on and so forth. And yeah, so today we've been discussing a little bit of Frank Sinatra on the podcast that I was recording today. You'll have to, again, tune in and hear that when it's coming up. And also, I was speaking to a performer from New York City, and they, as well as doing improv, are a stand-up comic. So it was interesting just to see how there is connection, differences, crossover with stand-up comedy and improv. It's an interesting thing. I'd like to get more stand-up comics to appear on the show and just discuss what they do. I think it's really interesting and educational. Not that it's meant to be an educational podcast, but I think it's an interesting thing if you've got a ear which is open to picking up things, tips and tricks and stuff. You can learn a lot from what some of these performers are saying, just from their other interests and what their philosophies are and how they're perhaps shaped by their experiences in their everyday lives. And there was another one. Oh yes, of course, I spoke with a couple of performers. They were currently in Ireland, but one of them was Irish and the other is Spanish but lives in Germany. And so that's all coming up. I'm not forgetting everyone's names, but I'll plug them when they get a bit closer. But you'll have that to look out for, just because otherwise I'll just be sitting here listing loads of names and loads of countries of origin. But as you can see, so far we've had the United States, we've had Ireland, we've had Amsterdam, and that's just with 4 recordings. Tomorrow, obviously, we'll be recording in London. One thing that's interesting is just in arranging these recordings, I've yet to actually have one come up with someone who's actually in England. And that might be that people in England feel like we'll just hold off until we can have a face-to-face recording rather than one through the internet. But yeah, if you're in England and you do improv, I want you on the show. So don't be a stranger, get in touch. The way you can get in touch is by emailing me in the show at extremeImprovComedy@gmail.com. You can also contact us through our Facebook with Extreme Improv's Facebook page, so you can send us a message. You can also just look out for when we advertise the show and just put a comment, put a little note. You know, there's lots of ways you can get in touch. We're on Twitter, so make sure that you do that. This episode's I'm going to put this up tonight, and then we're speaking, it's the 2nd of December. On the 11th of December this month, as I mentioned previously, we've got our show on the 11th of December. It's the Impro Fest UK. It's interesting because I find it really difficult to say impro nowadays rather than improv, because it's extreme improv. But for years and years, I'd only ever say impro. But I now say improv, which is more of an American style, rather than in England we say impro. But since most of my guests are American and I love doing the shows in America the most, then I say improv, so sue me. What else have I got to report? So I can't even remember how well advertised and publicised this was, but we were having a show at the Camden Comedy Club on the 26th of December, Boxing Day. And unfortunately, we were contacted over the last few days from the venue, and they're now going to be closed for Christmas and Boxing Day. So that show has unfortunately been cancelled. It's, I think, the first time we've had a venue had to cancel a show, and it's all fine. There's absolutely no problem about it. I think only one other time from my end of things, I've cancelled a show, which was last November, actually. So we're usually very, very good at, if we say we're going to have a show somewhere, we will always usually be there. But very, very occasionally, circumstances stop that from happening, which is a little bit of a shame, just because it was going to be a really exciting thing to have our Christmas show. There was going to be lots of Die Hard, lots of Gremlins, lots of Mixed Nuts and other movie references in there. Does anyone remember the movie Mixed Nuts with Steve Martin in? That was a really good film. I think Adam Sandler, when he was really young, was in it as well, but I haven't seen it in about 4 or 5 years myself. But check out Mixed Nuts. It's a good comedy. And Jingle All the Way is another good Christmas film with Arnold Schwarzenegger in. But I don't know why I'm just discussing Christmas films now. But like I told you, this podcast, it can kind of be about anything, because it is just improv, and improv is the medium in which you tell any other kind of story you want. So if you don't like me talking about all this other stuff, you've got to let me know. I will do what my audience wants, but then I might subvert that and do exactly what I want, even against the audience's wishes. Once again, sue me. So yeah, like we were going to have Christmassy stuff. We were going to do something, I'm sure, about Christmas Carol and The Grinch, but that show is no more, which is a bit of a shame, because we had like one of the healthiest amounts of pre-sales this far in advance that we've had for our shows, and yeah, it's not going to happen now. But I think next year we're going to try and have a Christmas themed show. So if you want to see anything Christmassy out of Extreme Improv, there's a couple of ways you can do it. Come see us on Wednesday the 11th of December at 7 p.m. at the Courtyard Theatre in Shoreditch, and suggest for us to do a Christmas scene. Because if I say, can I have a place of work, and you say Santa's workshop, that's going to end up a Christmas scene. If you say, do a scene set at Nakatomi Plaza, that will be a Die Hard scene, which of course is the greatest Christmas film of all time. And I do apologise to A Muppet's Christmas Carol, because that is really up there as well. But yeah, so that's at Improfest UK. So tickets for that are available, and I'm going to give everyone listening as a little present, a little bonus, because I don't mind revealing this here. We are also recording these podcasts tomorrow, and I think one of those may be a slightly Christmassy themed one. I'm not 100% sure when the comedy show style ones are going to debut. They might be saved for the new year, but maybe we'll have a little something for Christmas that we can debut Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and then start properly for New Year's Day or something like that. So, this has been a mini episode. I will just say a couple of other bits. That if you do like hearing me, in particular David Postansky, talk about some non-improv related things, you're going to be able to very soon, because starting very soon, but I can't say quite when yet, because I haven't made up my mind quite when yet, because I've got lots of other stuff on. I'll get through tomorrow's recording of Extreme Improv with big groups, and then I'll work out how quickly I want to add to that load, because I'm going to have some more podcasts starting up. I'm going to have the Super Kick Mania pro wrestling podcast from Extreme Improv. So if you like hearing about the pro wrestling stuff, as you will on a future episode when I'm talking about improv, you'll hear a lot more about professional wrestling from myself. And we'll be discussing topics like WWE, All Elite Wrestling, NXT, NWA, like Impact Wrestling, some British stuff, New Japan, Pro Wrestling, and all of that good stuff. We'll be discussing classic stuff, we'll be discussing pro wrestling figures and pro wrestling video games and all that other good stuff. So if you're a fan of pro wrestling, make sure you look up and get ready for the Super Kick Mania pro wrestling podcast from Extreme Improv. Beyond that, I mentioned pro wrestling video games, like I mentioned Extreme Improv, the video game. There's going to be a video game podcast that I'll be starting as well, and that will be the Games Monster podcast from Extreme Improv. And the game, and like any of these, there might be the inclusion of some improv games in there. I'll see if people like that or not. It's all experimental. There's no time limit in getting these things right. I'm just trying to do my best for you guys, and by giving me lots of feedback, then you can help. And there's another way you can help. Look at the segue I'm about to do here. You can really help Extreme Improv by being a patron for us on Patreon. That is right. We have now got our own Extreme Improv Patreon page. So when you go on to Patreon, just search Extreme Improv. I can't even speak. Search Extreme Improv without the in the middle of it, and you'll be able to find us. And we've got some great tiers with some great benefits where you'll be able to get some exclusive content, exclusive shows. You'll be able to get options for live tickets and get those cheap, free discounts, merchandise, t-shirts, the lot. So become a patron, because we'll give you your money's worth. You know, we Really appreciate everyone that's ever supported us, and we want to give that back to you guys. We love doing the Extreme Improv shows, and I'm not just speaking for myself here. I'm speaking for all of the guys involved, the guys and girls, the guys. I don't know if that's a correct term. I don't want to get things wrong, but forgive me if I have got something wrong there. But all the guys out there using it as a gender-neutral term. All of our cast, we really appreciate all of our audience and all of the engagement and all of the times you've come out to support us. So if you support us on Patreon, that will help us continue to give you more entertaining improv, more entertaining comedy, more fun photos and silly videos and podcasts and live shows, and it will just help cover some of these costs, and hopefully it will help us go up to the next level and take the next steps we need to be able to really get this thing going. I mean, from where we started a couple of years back with Extreme Improv, just supposed to be a one-off show, to where it is now, it's gone on places where I couldn't have imagined. I think I probably said this on the very last podcast as well. I'll probably say it every podcast. But I really appreciate all of the support we've had to make this a thing and make it a reality. So thank you all so much. So follow us on Facebook and Twitter and everything to find out when we've got new shows, new podcasts, new funny videos, new funny photos, just random posts with jokes or puns or whatever. And we'll keep making you some fantastic and excellent quality content. And probably some bad quality content too, I'm not going to be so up myself and arrogant to say that everything we do is an absolute hit, but it's all about the journey, isn't it? So, lots of stuff coming up. I'm going to begin to wrap things up now. Still getting used to doing these solo podcasts, so do bear with me, because I think after the last one my thoughts were that I speak too fast, and I think I am still speaking a bit too fast, but heck, if I've identified it out loud now, it'll help me remember more for next time. And yeah, there you go. That's our mini episode for today. So for now, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Subscribe, hit that bell, likes, and all of these other things. That subscribe, follow, tweet, retweet, everything you can. Be part of the community. And chuck us $1 or $2, because it uses American currency on Patreon, because that would really go down well. Look out, because very, very soon we're going to start making some of our announcements for live shows in 2020. We've got, even though none of them have been announced yet, I think I have got, so that there are, just working this out, 5, 9, 10, 11, there's currently 12 shows that we have lined up for 2020, and that's only going to get more and more, because lots of things are still on the boil, but we're just trying to get dates and locations and everything sorted. But this time last year we didn't have 12 shows lined up for 2019, and this year we've done over 50 shows, so I can't imagine, with 12 shows lined up already, how many we will end up doing in 2020. But it's going to be an incredible year, but I will leave that for another time, another mini episode to do the updates. So, until next time, this is David Postansky, and you can follow me at David Postansky on Twitter, look me up on Facebook and all that, and then follow Extreme Improv, and for now, that's all. Bye-bye.